Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 7 in the series The Most Fantastic Chess Moves Ever Played. You can find the first 6 installments of this series in the description box underneath this video. This amazing move was played in 1933 in a game played in Spain, but 82 years later Fabiano Caruana referred to it in a tweet which he sent on the 5th of July 2015. After playing a game in a tournament in Dortmund, he said, "That was my Ortueta Sanz, thrilled to be the winner of Dortmund for the 3rd time." So Caruana knew that game, which was played in Madrid in 1933 between Martin Ortueta Esteban with white and José Sanz Aguado with black. And Sanz made that amazing move that Caruana referred to 82 years later. And it was the 9th world champion Tigran Petrosyan who once said that when he first saw it at the age of 10, it thrilled him so much that it was a major factor in binding him to chess forever. So what is that amazing move from Sanz about? Let's look at the game. White opened e4 and Sanz opened e6, the French defense. Sanz, the black player, was a one-time champion of Spain at the time. d3 from white and d5, knight c3, where knight d2 is the most popular move, knight c3 is less common, knight f6 from Sanz, e5 from Ortueta, knight fd7, f4, and now c5 is the main move, but Sanz played bishop b4. Bishop d2 on pinning the knight, Sanz castled, knight f3 from Ortueta, and f6, attacking white's center. d4 and now c5, attacking the center again, now from the other side. Knight b5, f takes e5, d takes e5 and rook takes f4. That pawn can be taken because the bishop is pinned. It's not allowed to take the rook. It's against the rules of the game. But you may ask, can white now not win a piece? With c3 and 2 black pieces are hanging, the rook is hanging now, and white has also attacked the bishop. Well, Sanz had looked further and had seen that he's not losing a piece. He has an intermediate check with the rook. Bishop e2, and now he saves the bishop. Ortueta castled, and knight takes e5, picking up a second pawn for black. Here knight g5 is the best move, attacking the rook, and the rook only has one square, h4. Then white can play queen e1, attacking the rook again, and after rook h6, white has great compensation for the 2 pawns he's down. Black's pieces are either still at home or they are badly placed, not coordinating well. But after black took that second pawn, white did not play knight g5, he took on e5. That's not a good move. Black took back, and bishop f4, hitting that rook again. Rook stepped aside, bishop d3, again hitting the rook. Black loses a lot of time playing rook moves, rook f6, and now José Raúl Capablanca, the 3rd world champion, who analyzed this game for the magazine Ajedrez Español in 1936, gave queen h5 with a winning attack. The engine does not think this attack is winning, but this was Capablanca's view back in 1936. But Ortueta did not play queen h5, he played queen c2, putting pressure on the h7 pawn. h6, bishop e5, again hitting the rook, and now black has to be careful, and he was careful. You cannot play, for example, rook takes f1 check, because then you will get checkmated. Rook takes f1, and white has 20 points in the attack. Rook, queen, and 2 bishops. And black's king has no defenders around him. White checkmates by force. Let's just look at one variation. Knight d7 to bring a defender closer to the king. Then there is a check. King h8 only move. White sacrifices a piece. It has to be taken. And then queen g6 check. King back to h8 only move. Knight d6. White is bringing all his pieces to the party. Attacking black's king. Knight e5. The only way to prevent knight f7 checkmate. Knight f7 comes anyway. Knight takes, rook takes, and there will be a checkmate on g7. Just to give you a variation. After bishop e5, taking on f1 is not good. And retreating the rook with rook f8 also doesn't work because of bishop h7 check, and this also leads to checkmate. So black has to be careful after bishop e5. He has to sacrifice material. He played knight d7, good move, bringing a piece into the game. Black is so much behind in development, he really needs to get some pieces into the game. White took the rook, knight takes back, and look at this move from Ortueta. He's not scared of sacrificing. He gives back the exchange straight away, taking a knight, which was black's only active piece. Queen takes, rook f1 with a tempo on the queen, and you have to be careful, don't go to e5 for example, because then there is a mate in 2 on the board. King in the corner, and this is checkmate. So after rook f1, Sanz went to e7 with the queen, keeping the f8 square protected. Bishop h7 check him anyway, king h8, and now queen g6, bringing the queen very close to black's king. Bishop d7, developing. Rook f7, and it looks all over for black. Queen g7 checkmate, what do you do against that? Well, black still has a move, queen g5, the only move to play on. And if you now take on g7 with the rook, then the tables are turned. It's suddenly white who will get checkmated. Queen e3 check, king f1, and rook f8 check, and black will checkmate the white king. So after queen g5, queen takes g5 is the only move, swapping the queens, and rook takes d7, winning a piece, but the bishop on h7 is also hanging. King takes, and rook takes b7. If we do a body count, we see that white has won 1 pawn back of the 2 pawns he was down. Black is still a pawn up. Here c4 is the best move according to Capablanca in his analysis in 1936, but Sanz played bishop b6. c4 from Ortueta, another pawn sacrifice to activate the knight. White is really not afraid to sacrifice material. D takes c4, and now knight d6 is a better move, attacking the c4 pawn, and white should be able to make a draw here. But after d takes c4, Ortueta played the knight back to c3, and that's less strong. Rook d8, activating the rook, h3, making a square for the king, and rook d2. Now black is much better, has a winning position. Knight a4 from Ortueta, protecting the b2 pawn, and now we get one of the most fantastic moves ever played. Rook takes b2. What a move. White just has played knight a4 to protect the pawn on b2, but black takes it anyway and just gives up a full rook. Ortueta took it, and what's the point? The point is c3. That pawn is very strong. If you play knight d3, looks logical at first view because it's covering the promotion square, but then there is c4 check. The bishop gives check to the king, and black is attacking the knight at the same time. You can play king f1, but then c takes d3, king e1 for example, and bishop e3. Here black wins. These 2 pawns are much too strong for the rook and the king. Let's go back. We played knight d3, c4 check. We saw that king f1 doesn't work. What about rook takes b6, taking that piece that was given check? Well then, c takes d3, and white is again helpless against the 2 connected pawns, far advanced on the 3rd rank. So after c4, c3, knight d3 doesn't work. Ortueta took the bishop, and now there's only one move that wins for black, and Sanz had found it. He played c4. Unbelievable. Being rook and knight down, black finds a time for a quiet move to cover the d3 square. If he had taken the rook instead, then knight d3 and the pawns are under control. The white king can come over and help the knight. But c4 wins for black. What a move. If you take that pawn, then c2, and this pawn will promote. Black wins. So Ortueta played rook b4, and that looks like it's a refutation of black's last move. Because how does black continue? If you take on b2, then rook takes b2, white wins. If instead you play c2, then there is rook takes c4, and the c1 square is under control. White wins. So what to do? Well, again, there is only one move that wins, and that is the amazing move a7, a5. Quite incredible, and Sanz said afterwards that this move had taken him most time to calculate. He had to calculate all this when he took on b2 with the rook, and it took him 45 minutes to figure out all the variations. a5 wins, and why does it win? Well, if you take on c4, then c takes b2, and there's nothing you can do against promotion of the pawn. And the move that was played in the game was knight takes c4, and then c2. And white is rook and knight up, but there's nothing he can do against this pawn promoting. Ortueta resigned here. He could have played something like rook a4, trying to play on with rook and knight versus the queen, but then c1 queen check. You cannot go to f2 because there is immediately a queen fork. Check, and the rook is hanging. King f3, queen takes a4, and black wins. If after c1 queen check you go to h2 with the king, then there is also queen c2, hitting the rook. You can still defend the rook with knight b6, but then queen c7 check picks up the knight. King h1, queen takes b6, and this is an easily winning endgame of queen versus rook. So after c3, c2, Martin, Ortueta, Esteban resigned this game, and José Sanz Aguado had won a wonderful game with not only one, not only two, but three moves that can be ranked under the most fantastic chess moves ever played. So back to Caruana's tweet. He said, "That was my Ortueta Sanz, thrilled to be the winner of Dortmund for the third time." What was he referring to? Caruana had the black pieces in the penultimate round against the Romanian Grandmaster Nicepeanu. And this is the position after the 23rd move from Caruana, knight a5 to c4. And the English international master Malcolm Payne writes in his column for the Telegraph newspaper, "The translation of advantages is the hallmark of a great player. Caruana gives up the bishop pair, but his a-pawn is ready to advance." And Nicepeanu took the bishop pair with knight takes e6, rook takes e6, and rook d7 from white, rook c6 from Caruana, protecting his bishop, and knight g3. g6 from Caruana, giving some air to the king and keeping the knight out of f5 or h5. Knight back to e2 from Nicepeanu, and now a5 from Caruana, the Sanz move. Attacking the bishop. If you go to, for example, to e7, then there is a4, and that pawn will run really fast. You have to give your bishop for the pawn on a3. So that doesn't work. So after a5, Nicepeanu played knight d4, attacking the rook. Caruana took the bishop, Nicepeanu took the rook, and now taking back on c6 does not work because of rook takes c7, b3 and rook b7, and the b-pawn is under control by the rook. But now, after knight takes c6, Caruana made his Sanz move. He played b3. Wonderful move. Because after rook takes c7, black is a rook down, but he played a wonderful move, knight c4 to d6. Protecting the b7 pawn, and now this pawn is unstoppable and will go through to queen. Nicepeanu resigned, and Caruana tweeted, "That was my Ortueta Sanz." He did remember that game played 82 years earlier. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.